Hello, my name is Ockert Doyer. I'm Head of Credit at Sanlam Investments and responsible for the infrastructure solution. Simply put, infrastructure can be classified into economic infrastructure as well as social infrastructure. When I talk about economic infrastructure, I talk about physical assets like roads, railways, ports, harbours, etc. Typically speaking about the economic capital of a country. When I speak about social infrastructure, I would include the likes of clinics, schools, etc. And that infrastructure typically is utilized to build up the human capital of a country. All economic activity in a country happens through utilizing a country's infrastructure network. As an example, goods and services can be moved more efficiently if you have an efficient road and rail infrastructure in place. We've seen countries like China and India invest very heavily in infrastructure over the last few decades. In China, they've managed to achieve GDP growth rates in excess of 8%, and in India, they've achieved growth rates in excess of 7%. Infrastructure assets have long lifespans. If you think about the lifespan of a road or a port or a harbour, these assets can be around for decades. So investors, by investing in the right sort of assets, will reap the benefits of earning steady returns for an extended period of time. Historically, infrastructure investment has predominantly been done through government investment. But more recently, public-private partnerships have been utilized in order to utilize the expertise and the funding that's available in the private sector to also invest in infrastructure. We believe by crowding in the private sector into these investments, you can utilize their expertise as well as oversight in the rollout of infrastructure, specifically in South Africa at this stage. It has to be acknowledged, though, that investing in infrastructure is not like investing in listed equities. Due to the complexity of each investment opportunity and the long lead times, as well as the complexity of implementing these transactions, expert knowledge and experience is required for successful rollout of an infrastructure investment strategy. Many studies globally, as well as our own data, has shown that by including infrastructure in a well-diversified portfolio, you can substantially increase the risk-adjusted returns that the portfolio can achieve. You can also benefit from inflation protection, as well as lower risk of capital loss. It is quite interesting that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as locally the National Development Plan, as well as the South African Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan initiative, all have investing in infrastructure as a key factor in achieving positive social outcomes. And the positive social outcomes that are specifically targeted through the National Development Plan includes increasing inclusive economic growth, reducing poverty and reducing inequality. Further social benefits includes job creation, both in the short term as well as the long term as economic activity increases. We also have further benefits through the investment in renewable energy as an example of reducing carbon emissions. A further positive development in the infrastructure space, and specifically with regards to retirement funds, is the proposed amendments to Regulation 28. Reg 28 sets prudential limits for the inclusion of various asset classes in a retirement fund. And the regulator is specifically proposing to make these changes so that the retirement funds can increase their allocation to infrastructure assets. We see these amendments as very positive, and we're working with the regulator to ensure that the final amendments will achieve the stated outcome of allocating more capital towards these sorts of investments. Sanlam Investments is launching the Sustainable Infrastructure Fund. This fund will invest in economic as well as social infrastructure. The fund will provide predominantly debt funding, but also mezzanine debt as well as equity funding to the underlying project. Sanlam's Sustainable Infrastructure Fund is an ideal way for pension fund members to partner with Sanlam in investing in infrastructure and the South African economy.